Simple trick to identify active and passive voice. Usually, you will find the word by in passive voice. If you want to be thorough, if you want to score 4 out of 4 in active and passive voice, first you need to make sure that you are thorough in tenses. At times, the past tense will also be past participle. Don't forget, don't get confused. Article anna skip madbedi. Don't skip the articles there. Hello, hi, namaste, and welcome to Vidhyaashram, first grade college, the temple of excellence. I am Nandakishore, faculty of English in Vidhyaashram, MYSURU. In my previous session, I had discussed about reading comprehension, which is one of the language components. And in today's session, I am going to discuss about active and passive voice for the third semester. And one should know that for B.A, B.C.A, B.COM and B.B.A, language component is one and the same. So let us start with active and passive voice. So what is a voice basically? Voice is the form of a verb which indicates whether the subject of the verb performs or receives the action. According to this explanation, it is a form of a verb action word, which indicates whether the subject of the verb performs or receives the action. According to this explanation, let me tell you, Rama is the subject here. And of the verb, whether it is performing or receiving the action, it is performing the action. This is the verb and this is the object. Right? And we simply call it as active voice, AV. And we have a formula usually subject, verb, object in active voice. When it comes to passive voice, Ravana was killed by Rama. Here, the subject becomes object and object becomes subject. So, OVS. It is reversed. SVO becomes OVS. That is one of the simplest tricks to follow or to identify active and passive voice. This is passive voice. There is second simple trick to identify active and passive voice. Usually, you will find the word by in passive voice. Try to remember the word by. ಈ ಬೈ ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಪದನ ನೀವೇನಾದ್ರೂ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ passive voice. It is one of the simplest trick I am teaching you. I am not going in detailed explanation. I am not going to explain it in details. I am going to do it later on. But let us move on with simplest rules while I am discussing about active and passive voice. Remember, in your examination, change it to passive voice. Change it to active voice. They can give you a sentence and ask you to change it to the other voice. But at times, they may not give you this in the bracket. They simply tell you, change the voice of these sentences. So how do you do it? You may have to identify, first thing, you have to identify whether this is an active voice. If it is an active voice, change it to passive voice. If it is in passive voice, do the vice versa, opposite of it. ನೆನಪಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಒಂದು ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ಗೋ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ಗೋ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದೇ ಡೂ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಕೆಲವೊಮ್ಮೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಡ್ದೇನೆ ವಿತ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಬ್ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಈ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕೊಡ್ದೇನೆ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೆಡ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ change the voices of the sentences anta helbodu. So you may have to be ready with that. Let us move on. You know that there are two types of voices, active voice and passive voice. First thing you should remember, don't get confused with direct speech and indirect speech. This is not speech we are talking about. We are talking about voice here. Keep this in your mind. What is active voice? I'm going to explain it in a simple way. Try to listen to it. Active voice is used to show that the subject is Rama. Remember this. Subject of the sentence. So subject of the sentence is Rama is performing or causing the action. What is the action caused here? Killing is the action here. It is the verb and action is killing. Killed. Remember, even the tenses will play a key role. ನೀವು ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ನ ಥರೋ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರೆ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಥರೋ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಟೆಲ್ ಯು, if you want to be thorough, if you want to score 4 out of 4 in active and passive voice, first you need to make sure that you are thorough in tenses. There are 3 tenses and under each tense there are 4 subtenses. Let me give you an example. If it is past tense, simple past tense, past continuous tense, past perfect tense, past perfect continuous tense. Likewise, in other 2 tenses, present and future, there are 4 subtenses. You need to be thorough with all the 12 subtenses. 3 main tenses and all the 4 subtenses. So put together, it is 12. You are thorough with it, then you come to active and passive voice. So before becoming thorough or before having some idea, basic idea about tenses, you cannot change it. That is the first rule. Try to understand that. Here, action is killed. It is in past tense. If I'm just writing, I'm going to explain this S later. So Rama killed Ravana. We are talking about active voice. How will it change? What is passive voice? In that case, passive voice is used when the subject, here, subject is the recipient of the action. Ravana is the subject now. He is the recipient. Was killed. It has come back way. It was the front way, now it has come the back way, reversed. Was killed by Rama. Usually I have told you, if you see the word by, it is considered as passive voice, not active voice, passive voice. Ravana was killed by Rama. I told you identifying the tense is one of the criteria here. How do you identify the tense? Look at the main verb. Main verb ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ನೀವು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದು ಯಾವ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ? ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ರಾಮ ಕಿಲ್ಡ್ ರಾವಣ. ಸೊ ರಾಮ ವಾಸ್ ಕಿಲ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ರಾಮ ಆಯ್ತು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ರೀಫ್ರೇಮ್ ಆದ್ರೆ, ಇನ್ ದ ಕೇಸ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ರೀಫ್ರೇಮ್ಡ್, ರಾಮ ಕಿಲ್ಸ್. He has not yet killed, but he is going to kill. Rama kills. Rama is definitely going to kill. Rama kills Ravana. In that case, Ravana is killed by Rama. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. We are going to use auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. Depending on the verb, depending on the tense, we are going to use auxiliary verbs here. I am going to simplify it even further with giving more examples. Here is the formula or formulae we use to identify or change the voices. Active voice will usually have subject plus verb plus object. As I told you, SVO. Try to observe subject plus verb plus object. He speaks Kannada. Try to apply the rule here. Try to identify what is the tense of this main verb. It is in present tense. So we are going to use present tense auxiliary verb when we come to passive voice. Passive voice, object plus be. This is very important. You should know the be forms. Be forms is or am or are plus be plus been plus was plus were. These are the be forms. Be, been, being is also to an extent, yes, it is the be form. So you can use any be forms here. in order to replace be, you can take and use any of these be forms. So without knowing be forms, you will go wrong in passive voice. Let me tell you, object plus be form plus V3. What is this V3? It is called verb 3 or third form of verb. Let me give you an example. Let us take the verb, kriyapada, verb, third form of verb anta heltivi. What is the second form of verb here? It is sang. Sing is first form or base form. Second form is past tense, sang. And third form is past participle, which is sung. Sing, sang, and sung. So we call it V3. Third form of verb, we always call it as past participle or even V3, past participle. So that is how you are going to remember this. Object plus be plus V3 plus by. By is a must. By plus subject. Try to observe object. Be form is here, right? V3 spoken. Try to remember speak, spoke, spoken. Sing, sang, sung. Drink, drank, drunk. Sleep, slept, slept. At times, the past tense will also be past participle. Don't forget, don't get confused. And cut, put, all these will never change. It is not cut, cutted, putted. No, it will remain the same. Both present, infinite, both past tense, second form of verb, and both third form of verb or V3 is called past participle will remain cut itself. It will not change. I know it is a bit confusing, but once you take up examples and start solving it using this formula, you are going to definitely become a perfectionist. And as I told you, by and subject. He becomes him. I am going to talk about how the subject becomes object and object becomes subject. Next one, here it is, as I told you, how the subject changes. Change in subjects. I becomes me, we becomes us, you becomes you, it remains same. They becomes them, he becomes him, she becomes her, and the names and things will remain the same. Ram remains the same, Ram. Book remains the same. It is book. You cannot change it. So try to remember, it is bit new to few students. ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ನಡ ಮೀಡಿಯಂ ಇಂದ ಬಂದಿರೋರಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ಬೋದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಸಿಂಪ್ಲೆಸ್ಟ್ ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ, ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಫಾಲೋ ದ ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟಿಪ್ಸ್ while solving or changing active to passive voice from passive to active voice. ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸಾಕು. ನಾನು ಈ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಏನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟು. ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್. ಏನು ಕಷ್ಟ ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಕಷ್ಟ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಏನಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಲೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿದ್ರೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಜ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಇಟ್. Now let us move on. Now I am going to tell you and talk about how the assertive sentence are going to change from active to passive. What is the meaning of assertive here? Assertive in the sense, the sentence which declares something, emotions or feelings, or simply a statement, right? And most of the sentences in English is in assertive form. First one, active. I write a letter. Now try to observe. I am going to talk about the tense, the rule, and different contents, how to change from active to passive. I write a letter. Identify the tense first. Very first rule you need to know is identifying the tense. So this is simple present tense. It is in present tense. So a letter is written by me. I told you a letter because you cannot skip a. It could be the or a article and not skip madbadi. Don't skip the articles there. So whatever articles are there, try to write them. If there are no articles, then don't use them unnecessarily. So a letter is written. Right irodu enagutte, written ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು past tense ಗೆ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. We have to change it to V3. Any verb. This is a simple rule. First thing ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, object ಇರೋದು subject ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Object ಯಾವ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ? What is the object? Object will become subject first. A letter is the object. Write it. Now a letter written by me, wrong. So you have to use auxiliary verb. How will you use the auxiliary verb? I am telling you the simplest rule. Try to follow it. You have to identify the tense. The second rule. Simple present tense. So you are going to use is. Third rule. Change the verb to past participle or V3. Write becomes written. Write is first form. Wrote is second form. Written is third form. You wrote it, written. Correct? Write iradu present tense. So you chose is. If it is wrote, I wrote a letter. What if the verb is past tense? Then this will become was. Simple, very simple. Depending on the tense, you are going to use auxiliary verb or helping verb in passive voice. A letter is written by me. I becomes me, as I told you. Try to recall, change in the subject. Simple. Written by, we are going to add by and I becomes me. Very simple. Try doing it. You can score 4 marks. I am giving you the tips and tricks only to score 20 marks. 20 precious marks just from comprehension or just from active and passive voice or just simply known as language component. Language component ಇಂದ 20 marks ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, 20 marks ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಿಸೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ. You will have this 20 marks in your pocket. Let us move on. I help you. Again, it is present tense, simple present tense. Right? You are helped by me. Depending on the object. You is helped by me is wrong. You cannot use is here. You are. I help them. They are. If the object is plural, then you are going to use plural auxiliary verb. We call it auxiliary or helping verb. You should know this. It is a must. So you are helped by me. I becomes me. I love my parents. All of these sentences are in present tense. What if they change to other tenses? I will love my parents. How do you change it? Let us say the sentence is different now. I will. We are talking about future now. The moment you see will note the takshana nimge artha agbeku, it is in future tense. The moment you see will, you should understand it is in future tense. My parents will be. We are talking about be. Remember, will be loved by me. Love iradu loved. It should be. Love is action word, the verb. My parents will be loved by me. I'm just giving you an explanation here. So I love my parents become my parents are loved by me. I love my parents is fine, but what about I loved my parents? Then my parents were, because it is in past tense. Just giving you an explanation here. We love our country. Our country is loved by us. We becomes us. Try to know these rules. Very simple rules. ಈ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಿ. ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಅ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್. ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೊತ್ತು ಸರ್ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಸರ್ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಡು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ಟೇಕ್ 20 or 30 examples, more than enough. How long will you take? Half an hour, that's all. In order to score 4 marks, you can't spend half an hour. Very easy, you can spend. If you want marks, of course you have to spend. Let us move on. What about negative sentences? We saw positive now. Or declarative sentences. What about negative sentences? I did not write a letter becomes a letter is not written by me. Is not written. Simply add not, because not is here. I write a letter is written by me. I do not write a letter becomes a letter is not written by me. I do not abuse my servants. My servants are not abused by me. I did not or I do not. Right? My servants are not abused by me. I do not write novels are not written by me. I hope I'm able to communicate. I'm able to reach you with my simple tricks, with my simple language. Try to listen to it, and I'm going to clarify any doubts you have just by using these examples. I'm going to give more examples. He does not tease her. She is not teased by him. If the sentence is different, she does not tease them, then they are, them becomes they. They are. Why? Because it is plural. Bahuvachana, we call it Bahuvachan, Ekavachan, right? Bahuvachana, Ekavachana irutte. So, depending on the object, we are going to use auxiliary verbs. Simple trick. It is just like mathematics. So try to know the rules, try to know the formula, and you can apply it. Interrogative. Next one is interrogative. Interrogative question. Now let us say, do you write a letter? How do you start this now? How do you change this? Letter is singular. So we are going to start with auxiliary verb. Question mark ಇರುವಂತದನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಏನು? Do you read a letter? Only object ಇದೆ. ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅದನ್ನ? How do you change? Is auxiliary verb ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, helping verb ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Depending on the object. ಇದು ಸಿಂಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಿಂಗ್ಯುಲರ್ helping verb ನ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದು ಪ್ಲೂರಲ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಲೂರಲ್ helping verb ನ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. If the object is singular, then we are going to use singular helping verb or auxiliary verb. If the object is plural, then plural form of auxiliary verbs. Is a letter written by you? Is a letter written by you? If the sentence is, do you write letters? Question mark. How do you write it? Are A is not there. Do you write letters? Are letters written by you? Simple. So letters is plural, so we are going to use plural form. Very simple. Do you write stories? Are stories written by you? Very simple. As I told you. Does she make candles? Are candles made by her? Next one. Let us move on. Try to remember this. You cannot change the sentences when they are in present perfect continuous tense, past perfect continuous tense, future continuous and future perfect continuous tense. If you don't know tenses, it is going to be very, very difficult for you to change from active to passive. Difficult, I'm telling you, very difficult. I'm not saying it is not possible, because just with blind beliefs or blind ideas, you can just change it, and whatever rules you apply might turn out to be in your favor. So you may go right, but remember, without knowing tenses, you will go wrong for sure. Sentence having intransitive verbs. I am going to discuss more about this slide and these contents in my next session. In my next session, I am going to change the sentences from present tense, past tense and future tense, and also the sentences with intransitive verbs. For now, just try to remember whatever I have discussed in today's session, because I don't want to just dump everything in all at once. No, in single slide or in single session, I don't want you people to just scratch your heads and get it confused. It's simple that I want to reach you with basic tricks and tips and ideas, and I have done my best. In my next session, I am going to discuss more about tenses. I have already told you, knowing tenses is a must, and by the time you watch my next video, kindly know tenses. It is a must, and there are a lot of materials available online. Take them up, try to solve them, try to understand. If it is not possible, I am going to tell you something or a bit more about tenses related to active and passive voice. Let us move on and talk about the previous year's questions which were asked in the year 2019, October and November. And the questions read, he loves the animals. He loves the animals. Change it to passive voice. As I told you in the beginning ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇದು ಬ್ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡದೇ ಇರಬಹುದು. They might not give you whatever is given here. They may not give you ಕೊಡದೇ ಇರಬಹುದು. So how do you know? First thing, you have to identify whether it is an active or passive voice. Then change it to other tense. Identify ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು other tense ಗೆ change ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Let us see it. Since they have already given change it to passive voice, we got to know it is in active voice. So apply the rule. The animals, first is object. I'm just going to write this. The animals. Now auxiliary verb. The animals, and which auxiliary verb to use? Second rule is try to identify the tense here. It is present tense. Of course, we are going to use are here. The animals are. Third rule, after identifying the verb, you have to change it to past participle. You have to identify the verb for 2 times and for 2 things. One is to choose the auxiliary verb while changing it to passive voice. The second time you identify the verb and change it to V3, past participle. The animals are loved. And remember, you are going to use by. He becomes him. 1 marks is in your pocket. Next one, they wanted books. Again, they have told change it to passive voice. Now remember, first rule is you have to write the object books. You wrote and you got to know it is plural. And you can use are or were, but depending on the verb. ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದ past tense ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಯೋ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನೀವು ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅನ್ನು ಚೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Here it was in present tense, so we used are. But here it is wanted, so we are going to use were. Very simple. Books were wanted. Remember, were wanted. It is already in past participle. Books were wanted by. By ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ passive voice ಗೆ ಬಂದಾಗ they becomes them. Simple rule. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ by heart ಮಾಡಿ. Try to mug up how subject changes to object, right? And how tenses change and how to identify the auxiliary verbs. Very simple. 2 marks in your pocket. Let us move on with the third question. See, this one I have taken and they have asked 5. But in your examination, there are possibilities they are going to only ask 4. Even if they are going to ask you 5, it's no problem. You can easily answer them if you are thorough with active and passive voice rules. The play has been watched by the children. If they don't give you the rule saying that change into active voice, it is understood because you have seen the word by here. It is a simple trick, as I told you. How do you change it to active now? Now, object becomes subject now. Again, children. Remember, the play has been watched by children, and we have already taken children here. Here it is has. Children have. It is in present tense. So based on the subject, here it is subject. Object becomes subject. So based on the subject, it is not children has. Child has is correct, and children have. Children have watched. It is, which is the tense here? If you can identify the tense, it is present perfect tense. Present perfect tense. Children have watched the play. Try to change it to passive now without seeing this. Children have watched the play. The play has been watched by children. Very simple. Play has been watched by children. trying to change from passive to active is going to be difficult if you don't know tenses. Now you are getting to the point, whatever point I told you, you may go right, but you will go wrong while changing from active to passive. Remember this. Fourth one, students are making posters. So you know that it is in passive voice and you have to change it to active voice. So let us try solving this. First thing, object posters. Since it is plural, it is are. Posters are, we have already talked about the rules, right? Present tense. Are making. It is in continuous tense. So how do you change it? Students are making posters. Posters are made by students, or posters are being made by students. Posters are being, because we are talking about continuous tense. Posters are being made by students. It might seem a bit difficult while I am talking about being, been, be forms, but without knowing the tenses, you cannot change the voices. Next one, you will be helped by Vasanti. I told you this is already in future tense. Change it to active voice by. Vasanti will help you. Very simple. You will be helped by Vasanti, and Vasanti will help you is the active voice. Think about it. It's pretty simple to look at and try to change it. While I'm doing it, it looks very easy. You might say yes, nod your head and say yes, I am understanding. But until and unless you take up a few examples, a few sentences and try to solve it on your own, you are not going to become thorough with it. I'm telling you, if you want to score 4 out of 4 in active and passive voice, of course you have to take up more examples and solve them. Until then, it's not going to be easy for you to gain full 4 marks in your semester exams. And that is it for today's session. I'm going to meet you in my next session, and in my next session, I'm going to talk about lot many examples. There are few exceptions as well where you will see by even in active voice, and there are few other rules you need to know. But for today, for now, take up these examples, take up more examples, try to apply the simple rules I have taught you. ನಾನು ಮೊದಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ನಾನು ಇವತ್ತು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬೇರೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಾನು ಏನೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಟೀಚ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಏನೇ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಸ್ ಸರ್ ನಮಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್. ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ you will get confused while you are attempting the questions in your examinations. Let that not happen. Let us not give them a chance to go wrong. Right? I'm going to meet you in my next session. Until then, keep practicing. Have a good day. Take care.